Who should I add for Dynasty? What should I do with my lineup or streaming strategy? Well, we got the answers. Welcome to Fantasy NBA Today podcast, the sports ethos presentation hosted by yours truly, Aaron Bruski, and FSWA Hall of Famer Steve Dr. A. Alexander. We're going to be talking with Mark Camero. We're going to bring him in in a quick second. Happy Saturday to all of you folks out there. I hope you're having a great weekend. Just some quick show announcements, though this one's not live on YouTube. We are doing live YouTube shows all over the place. We got Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in the mornings at noon Eastern time, and then Ethos After Dark with Doc and Rick, if I could talk here, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then we got all sorts of special segments like the one we've got here. We're going to talk a little Dynasty with Mark. We're going to talk a little bit about the week ahead, get you guys ready for your lineups, do some streaming strategy. And we'll just have folks from Sports Ethos on the shows from time to time and folks from around the industry as well. So it's going to be great fun. And let's get to it after we say hi to our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform, your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action, the ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to the BetOnline today to get on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's bring in Mark. Mark, how are you doing over there?
I am doing good. It's been a busy week. We've had some really packed NBA nights, and then last night with just the one game that was actually pretty exciting between the Mavericks and the Jazz, but otherwise pretty good. Just been a lot of basketball the past couple of days.
Yeah, it feels like it. It feels like we're just definitely into the meats and potatoes of the NBA season, and with 10 games under our belt or so, it feels like we kind of know what's what, at least for the most part, around the league. And now, of course, the chessboard will shake up, as the season goes on, and we'll just ride the whole thing out. Doc, how you doing over there? How was your trip to Johnny B's yesterday?
No, it's fantastic.
Did you make your tea time?
Yes, eventually. I eventually got there.
Hey, did the people in your life cooperate on that?
They did.
Yeah. Okay. Just checking.
Quick word. You said that our Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows are at noon. They're really like 12:30, between 12:30 and 12:45, because they don't start till 12:30 technically, and that's if we have all of our stuff together. So 12:30 to 12:45 is when you want to tune in for that.
And you're not at all needling us for our late starts at all, right?
I'm not. You said noon. I don't want the people here a half hour early, just twiddling their thumbs.
Sitting here waiting around like certain somebody that may or may not has shot a 61 at Golden Tee at Johnny B's yesterday.
People have stuff to do.
They do. And let's honor that by getting right to the basketball stuff. Let's take on Dynasty at the front end of the show. We'll talk about lineups and streamers for next week, sort of at the back end of the show. So Dynasty sweeping the nation by storm. I think there's more Dynasty than I've ever seen in my time doing this. And let's talk about some shooting starts and kind of how we deal with those. Let's go through some shooters here that are going up and down the ladder and get your guys' thoughts on what you guys do with it. So Mark, I want to ask you first. Luka, a little bit of a cold start. What do you do with a guy like Luka when he starts cold? And how do you kind of handle that just in general and then also with Dynasty leagues?
I mean, with players that are more established, so like Luka Doncic, and who we've also seen in the past have spells where he just maybe is dealing with an injury and just kind of settling for jump shots or especially deep threes. Yeah, you're going to see him go a little cold. So with someone like Luka, I trust the track record of him, and we know he's going to have periods where he just lights it up. It's just not right now, and that's okay. At that point, you just have to ride that wave and be okay with it and understand that, some weeks players are going to be hot, some weeks are going to be cold. It's not like just because a player averages 48% from the field, that doesn't mean they shoot between 46 and 50% each week. It's going to be a pretty wide range for most players. You just have to accept that, and it's just how it's going to be. That's just how it is in basketball.
Let me ask you, Doc.
For someone like Luka,
go ahead, Mark. Sorry, I'm stepping on you.
To say, for someone like, no worries. For someone like Luka, it's you have such a large track record. There's not a reason with his age or anything to be like, oh, this is the start of a decline or something. You can't do that with him.
Let me ask you this, Mark. I'll instead of going to Doc, I want to ask you about this. So Luka's shooting 42.8% from the field on a whopping 23.8 attempts per game. I don't know about the context for that. I feel like 23.8 is rather high. Then 81% from the foul line on 7 attempts per game. And he's bringing back, it was the number 14 player on a per game basis in 9 cat, where the 3.3 turnovers certainly hold their weight. What number do you take stock in either of these numbers? What about the free throw number? Because that's pretty big, 81%. Have you noticed anything there?
I mean, I'll try to like analyze shooting form, but I also am smart enough to know I'm not a shooting coach. I'm not a professional trainer or NBA shot doctor. I'll leave that to the experts. And at the end of the day, what I care about are your shots going in well. That's really all I care about. I don't care how it looks. I can, analyze body language and say, oh, look, Luka looks like he's sweating less at the foul line. Looks like he's more confident in himself. I mean, that's just.
You say sweating less?
I did, which I'm not saying I saw that.
Yeah,
no,
maybe it's a factor. Maybe there's sweats in his eyes. I love it.
It could be. I don't know if you're outside, have sunscreen, and you start sunscreen gets in your eyes because you're sweating. That would probably affect your shooting.
Stuff. I forget who the shooter was. Oh, it was Willie Cauley-Stein way back in the day when he was productive. Like he would turn his head to the left right as he shot the ball. I do fancy myself an NBA shooting coach. Let's get Doc's opinion. You're the Luka whisperer, Doc. Is any of this like 43% from the field, 24 attempts per game, 81% from the foul line? Does any of that feel like trend to you?
Well, I mean, I've been waiting for the 80% free throws forever because his form is great. He's one of the best shooters, pure shooters of the basketball in the entire league. And he hasn't gotten on one. He hasn't hit a hot streak yet with his outside shot. And he's taking so many shots per game, and a lot of them are like fadeaway threes. And, when he warms up, it's all circus shots. And I think when he gets in the game, he's like, oh, let's see what I can do from over here tonight. And he just hadn't gotten hot yet. But I always thought he was going to be an 80% free throw shooter. I was surprised his first 3 or 4 seasons when he was like 75 or below. Last year, he kind of came out of his free throw shell. This year, they're better. I think he was 7 of 7 last night. I love Luka. He, like Cameron and I talked about, the best players in the league turn the ball over. So if you want to be good at fantasy basketball, you got to forget about turnovers and get all the guys who turn the ball over on your team. If I'm going to punt a category, it's going to be turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, that whole strategy is kind of that's a head-to-head classic right there, the punting of the turnovers. Let me kind of combine a few players here. I want to get your guys' thoughts on what do you do, hot shooting starts. I mean, obviously cold shooting starts kind of fall in the same category, but like hot shooting starts might be a little bit more tantalizing. I'm always looking at the cold shooting starts and I'm kind of buying into them. With the hot shooting starts, when's this going to stop? And I'm less excited than I probably should be about a hot shooting start. But so like players like Tyler Hero, Jalen Green, these are kind of big buzzier names. Trey Mann, hot then cold. What do you do with the hot shooting start, Mark? Like, how do you evaluate that? And especially in this kind of a group where they're a little bit younger players, they don't have the body of work that Luka's got.
Yeah, evaluating these players, and I mean, these are all kind of shooting guards or combo off-ball guards that maybe don't pass a lot, and a lot of their value is predicated on their shot making. On my pod for Monday's release, I'll be kind of going more in depth on these type of guards and why I think they're actually some of the trickiest to evaluate for Dynasty, because their shooting drives so much of their value. And yeah, I mean, I think it's, at least for myself as a Dynasty and fantasy analyst, it's extremely hard to sometimes evaluate if a shooter is going to be good or not, even if you have college data, even with pre-NBA data. So for these younger players, what I kind of look at is the shot diet, the shot profile, where are they taking their shots from? And then for each of those shot locations, are we seeing any dramatic shifts in that? So Tyler Hero, for instance, he's field goal percentage is above 50%, I still believe. I think it's like 53, 54%, which is, about, I think, 8 to 10 points higher than we've seen in the past. However, he's taking less of his mid-rangers, so he's taking a little bit more threes, a little bit more rim and floater attempts. Now, on those rim and floater attempts, he is shooting about 5-7% points higher, which is it's a pretty large deviation from his career norm. Could be a sign of improvement, but probably not that much. Bring that down a little bit. His threes, shooting a little bit better on them too. That's probably a bit more in the range of improvement, but maybe that goes down a little bit. So, summarize that. Do I think he's going to be this hot? No. Do I think there is some improvement here, considering he is still young? Yes. And then, I'll be tracking that information and data, seeing if this is holding true, and then seeing just how these percentages are fluctuating throughout the season.
And that, in a summary, is why you want to follow Mark Camero, folks. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. And read his work here at sportsethos.com. Fantasy NBA Today, sponsored by Bet Online. That's amazing. And I do a lot of that stuff myself. And what about the slices, if you will, for Hero? I mean, you mentioned a couple on the floaters and kind of like, do you isolate each slice or view, to use some kind of database technology terms there? Do you isolate that and then ask yourself, is this real? And then sort of piece the puzzle back together to figure out your values?
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good way to summarize it. We can kind of apply this, I think, to Jalen Green, who started hot. All the Jalen Green stands out there came out of the woodwork. We're like, Jalen Green is back. He's here.
Houston Rockets fan, Mark Camero, by the way.
I think I'm a hater of my own teams, even though
as
this is
many
how
are.
it goes. But like Jalen Green, he was shooting lights out from deep the first 5 games, taking about, I think it was 10 plus threes per game, shooting like over 40% on them, which was actually it was higher than previous seasons. But what was actually really interesting was his 2-point percentages, just in general, were just lower across the board. And at a level where, okay, this is probably outlier as well in a negative way. So which one is true? Is he much better on threes and worse on twos? Or is the twos going to go up? Or the threes going to go down? And what we've actually seen now we have a 10-game sample, the threes have come back down a little bit to 35, 36%. And the 2-point percentage is not much better. I believe he's still under 40% for the year. And it's suddenly all these people who are hyping up Jalen Green, I haven't really seen much talk on him when he does worse. Well, you got to talk about both sides here.
And then I always think when I'm looking at that stuff, like you can almost see the game without seeing the game, because something about his 2-point shooting is not clicking, right? And then you have to ask why. And why do you think that is? Being somebody that's an invested Houston Rockets fan that loves his team's players.
Ooh. Honestly, good question. I've always questioned his finishing, not his athletic ability to generate rim attempts, his athleticism, his first step. They're all there, but for some reason, he just seems to contort himself almost too much at the rim. Just doesn't have that kind of, I guess,
like maybe for style points, maybe.
I don't know. And this is where I don't want to psychoanalyze, finishing movements or anything like that too much. He does generally,
as I just did.
Yeah, I do that too. I mean, I definitely have notes like, wow, he's trying to do too much or do something too fancy or dribble too much or something. But I'm not sure, honestly. It's just a trend that's held throughout his career that he hasn't been a good contested finisher. The numbers really haven't increased dramatically on that front. So, I mean, they're even worse now. His mid-range shot isn't exactly there. He's maybe hunting the threes a little more than what we like. I don't think it's any more, end of shot clock situations where he's just launching these mid-rangers and has to. I'm not seeing much of that either. So I think it's just maybe a little bit of a cold spell, but it's also not atypical from his career either, from inside the arc.
Yeah, I was just wondering what his free throw attempts per game look like compared to last season. And I'm trying to pull that up as we speak. It looks like this year he's got where's that at? That's hiding on me. 4.2 per game right now. And last season, it looks like he had, well, I'm not getting that intel. Maybe somebody can bring that up for us as we go here. It's because, is he playing through contact? Is he not playing through contact? The devil's in the details with this stuff, folks. Let me ask you this, and I want to get Doc in on this. What are you doing with Jalen Green? Do you think he's turned a corner of sorts, or do you think the jury's still out? Mark. Sorry, I should have aimed that question at somebody.
So, I mean, yeah, this is where shooting for me guards is just so tricky to evaluate because his passing to me has not improved, and it's not much better. His potential assist are, I think, a bit lower than last season. Not that I love potential assist as a stat, but it's a decent basic heuristic. No, his passing's not there. He's not really getting steals, blocks. You're not getting boards from him. Its value is all in points, and if he's going to shoot the ball well enough to see that. And this season, I mean, he's putting up more shots, but a worse efficiency. It doesn't exactly instill confidence that he's going to have this sort of large minutes per game role and shooting role going forward if this shot making doesn't improve. So, I mean, he's dropping a little bit for me. The point totals are still there, so that's at least good, but you're taking a lot of category lumps with him right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big buzzy name. I thought he did turn a quarter heading into the league. He's a little bit down in the free throws despite getting more minutes per game over last season. So this issue to me might be emblematic of a larger issue within the Houston offenses. It still feels like you got guys like Fred VanVleet still figuring it out. You've got Şengün, kind of the lead dog. You got the bench, two-headed monster of Tari Eason and Amin Thompson getting kind of more consistent minutes lately and rising their presence within this squad. Like, do you think that it's, and not to make this a Houston Rockets episode, but like, do you think that this is emblematic of a team-wide struggle and something that folks should say, hey, this is actually the future? Jalen Green is not going to function in this environment, kind of the same issue as last year, or is the jury still out there?
Well, we could definitely make this a Houston Rockets episode if we wanted to. No issue with that. I mean, the Rockets offense has looked pretty funky and out of sorts. I mean, Tari Eason and Amin Thompson, Houston Rockets, they're calling them the Terror Twins, which is pretty appropriate. But I mean, they're not necessarily offensive players right now, but they deserve minutes in the lineup clearly. And then it seems like it's a battle for, well, who are we running the offense through? Is it Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, or more through the post and Şengün? And I would also add that Udoka Rockets head coach Ime Udoka isn't exactly the most creative mind. So on offense, it's kind of, if we want to get Şengün a post up, we're just going to send him to the low block and the guard will dribble on the ring and try to make an entry pass. That's kind of most of how Şengün's post ups happen. There's not some action before. There's not have Şengün run a high pick and roll or have him operate as kind of like bonus hub up on that upper block area. And I wish we saw more of that because I think that would really unlock Şengün, and then maybe Jalen Green can play a little more off ball and have some backdoor cuts off the wing. We've seen that once or twice the past couple of games per game, but it's not really there enough. I wish we would be more creative in how we utilize Şengün as a hub, but I don't think Udoka is going to be like that. So
I'll take all of what was said and say that kind of means Jalen Green's a little bit running in the mud a little bit. Maybe he'll be a little bit better this year, but that turn, it isn't quite there. Doc, let's spin this question into more of a generalized fantasy. It could be dynasty as well, but like when you see these players that are shooting really well, like Hero, Man for a little bit, and then Green prior to the cold spell, like what's your instinct to do? Like, how do you handle that? Like, do you just ride it and then deal with the outcome later? Or are you kind of combing through for red flags? What's your general instinct there?
Oh, hey.
Hi,
guys.
Doc. How you
how's it
doing?
going?
You can hang out too.
I've been asleep for like 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, we saw. That's why I asked you a question.
You just woke me up. I mean, oh my God. I guess I don't know that I really have a good answer for your question. I actually was listening. But here's the thing. Luka struggling with his shot does not bother me because I know that Luka is a great shooter. Jalen Green going into this incredible funk that he is in shooting the ball worries me because I think he's more of that guy than he is the guy that we all saw the first week when he looked like a changed man. He looked like Anthony Davis out there. Nobody could stop him. And I was like, for a second, I was like, dang, Jalen Green is serious now. And now it's been like 3 weeks and he's made like 5 shots. So I don't worry about Luka. I worry a lot about Jalen Green. And like Tyler Hero gets hot and scores 41 or whatever he scored the other night. Jimmy Butler's not playing. The team around him sucks. That just makes me happy. Like if I've got Tyler Hero on my team and he goes off for 40, I know in my mind there's no reason that he can't go off for 40 once a week.
I think that my takeaways from that are that Doc hates Miami so much that he loves saying that they suck, and that makes him happy, and that we can't put Doc in the corner. Like if we put Doc in the corner for like 5 minutes, it's going to make him grumpy, and then we just can't do that. Mark, just a heads up.
I need you guys to stop pissing in my Wheaties.
Yeah, we got a pissing in your Wheaties alert over here. I'd like to thank the 8th grade track coach for giving me that vernacular. Let's switch topics. Let's go to this one's, I like this topic a lot. It's how do we deal with one cat standout players? And Dynasty maybe exasperates that issue. So what I'm talking about with that, if you're not into Z scores or, whatever, basically Z scores are a way to normalize basketball values in each category. So you got your 9 or your 8 categories, and how does a player performs well in these categories compared to a player that performs well in these other categories? Well, Z scores that take the standard deviation math alert that occurs within the league and says a guy that gets 4 blocks a game, well, this is how valuable he is against a guy that gets 5 threes a game or something. And so you get these guys that are productive in one category, like Walker Kessler comes to mind. Dyson Daniels is probably the biggest name that might be dealing with it, though he's been pretty good across multiple categories this season. How do you deal with this in either format, like redraft or dynasty? So let's start with you, Mark. Let's talk about the big topic of the day, Dyson Daniels and steals. How do you deal with this when you're trying to project out multiple years?
Yeah, and so in redraft, I don't have an issue with these players because you probably drafted them for that category. And if you get anything else on top, that's just gravy. So Dyson Daniels and his huge scoring outbursts against the Celtics, which I believe was a career high too. You just take that. That's just amazing to also have that production. But in Dynasty, when I'm looking at, I guess, more the true talent of a player and the true contributions, I want to see how much can you contribute outside of just that one category. And it's not to say that these one category players don't help elsewhere. Like Dyson Daniels, as you said, he helps elsewhere. Walker Kessler is going to help your field goal percentage some, help your rebounds a lot. I would also maybe extend this to Wembanyama. Maybe this is a little too spicy, but Wembanyama in the blocks do inflate his fantasy ranking a good amount. Not to say he isn't good in rebounds, good in other stats, but his blocks help that raw Z score ranking a ton. Peyton Pritchard in his threes provides elsewhere, but he's mainly a threes player. And so what I'm looking for is how many categories can you win me? How many categories can you really push an advantage in? So it's great that you do this for one category, but most Dynasty leagues are head-to-head 9-cat. How much more are you helping me? How much more are you helping me win? So, going to Wembanyama. Yes, great blocks. He's also going to help your rebounds a good amount. It's actually, I think, been pretty positive in free throw percentage, and with the threes upping, he's helping in threes there. So obviously, there's a reason why he's the top Dynasty player. He's helping you out pretty well in a lot of categories and massively in some. Someone like Dyson Daniels, though, yes, he's helping you win steals. Some would say probably by himself, and that's honestly pretty close to true. But is he giving you a lot of oomph in the other categories? He's giving you something, but it's not a lot of oomph. And when I'm ranking Dynasty, I want players that I can build around and I can find a direction and then I can win with and win those categories, not just be good in them. So it's great for Daniels that he's doing this and that he is surviving offensively. But it's like I want to see that next level. I want to see that extra. And that can come in time. That can definitely come in time. He's young. But for any, I guess, one category producer, I want to see what other categories can you win me and not just be okay in.
Do you think there's any element of Z scores misleading people? I know, Doc, you've said this in the past. Like early, like when we're working together, we'll talk about kind of like Z scores and just like I don't know if this guy, it used to be like Otto Porter or something. I forget who. Somebody who's getting like 8 points, 3 boards, 3 assists, and like maybe under a steal and under a block a game, but has great percentages. And you're like, I can't win with this guy. In a head-to-head league. Like, let's go around the block. Mark, you're first. Let's say, like, Z scores. Is there any element of this that's misleading people?
Yeah, there definitely is. I'm going to go a little mathy here, but the way Z scores work is assuming that it's all based on a bell curve, and so the standard deviations are equal levels apart, and that's just not true. I know other analysts have talked about this before too. I know someone did a study on this and then tried to basically model a curve to how the stat distributions actually are to better counteract those effects and kind of create a better adjusted Z score. And I think that does portray fantasy players' values more. And I think it just boils down to what I was saying earlier. It's really how much categories are you like positive in or that much more positive in, not just the range that you are positive in one category, inflating, kind of almost subsidizing the other categories in a sense.
What about you, Doc? Like, that's almost basically what you've been saying for years, right? Like, what are your thoughts on Z scores and how we value players?
Well, I think these guys that are scoring like 6 points a game, but they also have a steal, block, and a 3 a game. Like, maybe that guy can help your team, but just because he's valuable on somebody's ranking, some algorithm says that he's a better player than some other player who actually has numbers that pop. It's not necessarily true. So I think they can be very misleading, sometimes, especially when you get down to like number 75 to 100. Like there's guys in there that are there because they have really high percentages. They don't turn the ball over. You know why they don't turn the ball over? Because they suck and they don't play that much and they don't have the ball that much. But as far as one category studs, I guess, like Walker Kessler, Dyson Daniels, Peyton Pritchard, whoever, I feel like 20 years ago, there were true, like, one category specialists. You're like, oh man, if you need blocks, pick up this chump off your waiver wire because he gets 3 blocks a night, but he does nothing else. Like, there were guys like that. And there were guys that were designated 3-point shooters. Now, everybody's 7 feet tall. Everybody's shooting threes. Everybody's blocking shots occasionally. So I just don't think it's as important as you used to be because almost all these guys, I mean, you look at Dyson Daniels' entire stat line, it's pretty friggin' good. And sure, steals are elite, but everything else is there too. So I don't know. It seems like it's kind of a thing of the past to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good note. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm not liking Dyson Daniels. I do like his game. I like where it's going.
You don't want to get booed off the internet, Mark?
I don't. Dyson Daniels is very popular right now, and for good reason. Again, I feel like I'm trying to rain on the parade a little bit, but no, he's obviously, as you said, Doc, he's contributing. He is contributing across the board enough where it's not like, well, it's steals, but then you're not giving me anything else. Kind of Ben Simmons-y in that regard. He's not at that level. He's doing enough in other categories. But I want to note too.
Oh yeah, go for it.
I want to note too that these one category standouts can kind of work the opposite way, and you have almost, I'll call them one category sinks. So like Giannis and his free throw percentage, I mean, yeah, that is sinking his Z score, but he gives you so much elsewhere where you're probably okay as a dynasty manager knowing that and building around it. Or you could say, Cade Cunningham and his turnovers. I agree earlier with the point. If high usage players are just going to turn the ball over, it's true. And Cade Cunningham, yeah, I think the turnovers are an issue in terms of how much good to great individual offense can he drive. But in terms of fantasy, he's obviously has production to back that up.
Yeah, and I just wonder the one thing, one category players, it's the variability for me. Like it blocks, especially. I mean, like block rates plummet quickly for guys all the time. Steals rates more of kind of a zigzaggy effect. And if those are the categories that you're counting on for value, I mean, man, you get a coach that decides to change the scheme and play it straight up versus gambling. I mean, that stuff it's crushing in terms of value, or the other way around. So that's the one thing that I like to kind of keep an eye out for there. What do you guys say we move this into some next week talk? You guys got anything else you want to pin to that discussion before we move it along? I see a no from Doc, and I see a no from Mark. Okay, let's get into this upcoming week here. So just some quick housekeeping kind of stuff here. We got 8 teams with 4 games. We got 4 teams with 2 games. That leaves, quick math, don't fail me, 18 teams with 3 games. If you're curious, the 8 teams with 4 games are Houston, Golden State, Chicago, Indy, Milwaukee, Orlando, Philly, and the Clippers. And the 4 teams with 2 games are OKC, Minnesota, Miami, and Phoenix. No, I will not read you the 3-game teams. That would be pointless. The low traffic days, 5 or fewer games. Teams teams that are playing on these low traffic days. I want to kind of focus in here. The Orlando Magic, Lakers, Jazz, Pistons, Spurs, Hornets, Raptors, and Wolves. Let's kind of take them in clumps here. Let's go out of the group of Orlando, Los Angeles, Lakers, Jazz, and Pistons. Who's kind of caught your eye as possibly available in a lot of leagues and could be used as a streamer? We'll start with you, Mark.
I'll give you 2 big man here. The first is Goga Bitadze for the Magic. I believe it was announced earlier that Wendell Carter Jr. was going to miss more time. And Goga's been starting for them, putting up good production. I think close to double-double per game, some defensive stats. And I mean, we saw that last year too. Carter was out. The Magic put in Bitadze for the starting lineup, and he produced well. I was really upset when not upset that he re-signed with the Magic. I'm glad Goga got his contract, got his money, got his bag. But he deserves a consistent rotation role. I think he's a legitimately good rim protector and does good center things on offense. So definitely if Bitadze is in your league, I don't know what his percentage is. It might be a little too high at this point, but he should definitely be scooped up for probably a good next week's value. Second player is Kyle Filipowski on the Jazz. I believe I might have been not the highest on him in the Dynasty, but I was pretty high on him. I'm definitely high on him for Dynasty, but he's already getting more minutes. He's someone who has enough offensive skill across the board to just kind of chip in a lot of areas, and I think that's super valuable in today's NBA game. I'm liking what I see from him on the court. He's giving you some points, a little bit of threes, some good boards, maybe a steal or block here and there. I think can just be a nice little option for you. Now, that might be dependent if Walker Kessler remains out for the next couple games, so make sure to monitor that. But if Walker Kessler is going to be out, then I think Kyle Filipowski is a good add.
What about you, Doc? Anybody in that clump of Orlando, Lakers, Utah, Detroit that you would consider that's low owned out of those 4 teams?
I'm just going to name players. Goga is somebody. Dalton Connect coming on strong for the Lakers since with the fall of D'Angelo Russell. Filipowski in Utah. Malik Beasley is kind of balling in Detroit. Guys are hurt. They're going to play. Beasley's going to play. Spurs, I don't know if if Victor Wembanyama's available in your league, you should probably pick him up. And Naz Reid in Minnesota. I love Naz Reid.
So you're just mentioning that you like Naz Reid. I do like the Goga thing's really interesting. I do agree with your assessment, Mark. I also think that, Wendell Carter Jr., the big one might be coming, the big injury that is. It's like he looks like he's in shape, and I saw him on the bike the other day, and I think they're just concerned about putting weight on the foot. And it's all just going to matter about when he gets back on the floor and the weight on the foot actually gets tested, and then boom, maybe the big one's coming, and that scares me. And on the other side, they've got healthy-ish players in Goga and Mo Wagner, and they also have 4 games this week. So that makes that like almost a no-brainer pickup for me. And then hopefully you catch him on the upswing. And then in Dynasty, especially, I do think that he's got a good 2 to 3 seasons ahead of him that would be, very fantasy relevant and maybe top 100 or better. Let's go to the other guys or the other teams playing on low traffic days, though. Doc, you ran through your favorites there. Mark, you got anybody in San Antonio, Charlotte, Toronto, or Minnesota that Doc didn't hit?
Charlotte, this might be more deeper leagues. Moussa Diabate, if he continues to see minutes, actually picked him up in one of my 14-team leagues in redraft. I actually like his rebounding energy. He has a little bit of butterfingers, not exactly the most secure hands, but you're playing off LaMelo Ball. You're going to get plenty of opportunities at the rim to finish. And if you just do some stuff on the boards and maybe add a block or two, that's good enough for some value there from the center spot.
Hey,
and then
Bruce.
Toronto.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mark. Keep
No,
going.
go ahead, Doc. Go.
No.
Yeah. And Toronto, quickly is going to be out for a little bit. So maybe Davion Mitchell. He didn't really show much offensively in Sacramento, but I think he's been doing a little bit more when I've watched. I think his passing and ability to get in the paint seems a little better. So he could be a worthy little streamer and see if he keeps producing there.
The name on that, because it cut out in my headset. What was the name on that, Mark?
Davion Mitchell?
Yeah, okay. Got it. Yeah, I mean, if he could ever get a shot, that changes everything for him. He needs better handles as well. So he's got kind of two things working against him there. But
I think I'm done with Davion Mitchell.
You're just all the way done.
I don't like it's not a fun ride. It's just so disappointing. Also, I have breaking news. If you play in an ESPN league, you might want to go check Johnny Collins' eligibility.
It might have added a letter next to it.
May have had an addition just right seconds ago.
Well, don't make me ask you what the special sauce is there and at Yahoo. Okay, let me ask you guys philosophical questions, like deep life questions here. How do you handle back-to-backs, in the context of streaming and, head-to-head leagues? Like, we got 2 teams with 2 back-to-backs this week. We got Houston and Chicago, and then we got 11 teams without back-to-backs. I won't name them. Like, what's your general approach with that? Because if you get 2 games right in a row, you can really run with that. And then if you don't have the back-to-backs, then it works different ways for different players. Doc, I'll go to you first. What's your general approach with this? Like, does it hit your radar? Is it case by case? How do you handle it? Like back-to-backs. Like, do you?
That to me,
I toss that to you. Like, what are you doing?
You blank that for a second. So, back-to-backs. It's all about who the player is. Like, I had a decision in 30 deep this week, our 30-team league. Do I start Andre Drummond with 3 games, or do I start Al Horford with 3 games? Well, Horford had a back-to-back. I don't know if Drummond did or not. Horford had a back-to-back, so I automatically knew at that point in time he wasn't playing in one of those games. So I started Andre Drummond, who then missed the game where Joel Embiid wasn't playing, which pretty much ruined my entire night and made me really mad at Andre Drummond. But, I mean, it didn't work out for me this time, but you got to just play the averages. Like, you look at a team like Houston. Let's think about who's possibly not going to play back-to-back nights for them. The only guy I can think of off the top of my head would be Fred VanVleet. So I'd be leery about Fred VanVleet, especially now that he's injured, playing in both of those games. Look at Chicago. Vooch is getting up there. Am I worried about Kobe White not playing in back-to-back? No, he's going to play. As far as, so I don't know. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, no. I would just sort of a strategy question to kind of pin to the back end of this show is like, and Mark, I'll ask you, these teams without back-to-backs, do you factor in there that these guys will have fresh legs? Like when you're making your add drop decisions, do you, in a redraft situation, do you get that deep into those details, or is it still, that's just background noise for you?
I normally don't. That seems, if I was more of DFS or something like that, or trying to do like prop spreads on an individual game, I probably would definitely look at that and look at, well, this team's fine, West Coast, East Coast, back to back. That's rough. Not that the NBA, I think, schedules those sorts of games anymore, but I would look at those for redraft. I think, as Doc said, it's more the averages, and I feel like that's getting to overthinking territory where you end up psyching yourself out, and then you end up playing this, this streamer that you think is always coming off fresh legs. He's going to be fine, and they're going to annihilate the team in the back-to-back, and then he just doesn't do well because he's actually not a good player. So I normally just go with the best players, and then factoring in, as kind of Doc was saying, the older players might rest in the back-to-backs, and younger players probably won't, unless they have some sort of injury recovery or history.
It's funny. These are questions that kind of like, I don't know. They might not even be the world's best questions. Like, as Andre says, I wonder what Descartes thought about back-to-backs. The interesting part about this is we get a lot of lineup questions.
I'm sure he wrote that in the private chat to have you read it out loud. You guys are going to meet on the square tomorrow at noon.
Well, it's a good thing I got you with me, Doc. You can help me.
We're gonna have a duel.
I hear he can kill a man with his bare hands.
We're gonna have a duel. Oh yeah, he doesn't need a weapon.
He looks at me and boom, I'm dead.
He'll kill you with his bare hand.
Yeah, with his bare hand. But we get these lineup questions and they're like coin flips, and how people get to the point where they actually make the decision actually really matters a lot in fantasy leagues. Like, you'll win a category or not based on that gut decision that you made. So I do like hearing people, how do you get to your gut decision? I remember I won $30,000 in a football league because Greg Rosenthal, as I was walking into the final draft in Vegas for NFL football, he's like, go with your gut. And then also go with the player that you think is the best player. And so that was my overriding thought process that allowed me to select Larry Fitzgerald. He just went off and I won a bunch of money, and I'm just laughing. I'm like, that was the reason. That was the reason I picked them. And so you sometimes pick with your gut. Sometimes you think the back-to-back matters. Sometimes you are actually very correct and it's super easy. Like Al Horford doesn't play back-to-backs, or Fred VanVleet might be a candidate not to play. And what does that do to the rest of the offense? So it actually, these questions with no answers, they actually kind of mind boggle a lot of us.
If you think about DFS, you're making,
that's every day for people.
100 of those decisions just sending one lineup. You're like, oh man, I have this much money and I have 20 guys I'm looking at. So, I mean,
that's a rough life.
That decision making it's everything, obviously. Like, if you make dumb decisions or bad decisions, then you don't win any money.
I think I might have somehow dodged the stupid question, situation where I asked just really stupid questions there, but we got to something good. I think. Oh, it's Descartes, since we're saying it out loud. I'm exposing myself for my lack of historical knowledge of philosophy and philosophers and stuff. Okay, we're gonna get out of here, especially on that note. Anything that we haven't covered that you would like to get off your chest, Mark or Doc? I'll go with you first, Mark.
I don't think so. I'm trying to think, but hopefully the
we hit it all.
Up, so.
Another incredible question.
Now we're going to the square. Now we're going to the square.
What would you like to get off your chest? Well, let me tell you.
Yeah, I want to hear. What would you like to get off your chest?
Get off my lawn.
We're 20 minutes after your supposed departure time.
Oh no, my tea time got moved to 4 p.m.
That's what you were doing while we were going deep on Jalen Green shooting
Well,
percentage.
I had a 20-minute break there, so I took care of some stuff. I had a lot of those today. But funny, I went to Zaxby's today. Shout out Zaxby's. And I'm in the drive-through window, and clearly I can't talk. So I was like, yeah, I just need a large tea or whatever. She's like, what? I can't hear you. So I had to go in, and they make me this drink. I take it out of the car, I drink it. I'm like, this is not what they're supposed to make. I took it back in. But the point of the story is, I can't go through a drive-through window because people think I'm screaming at them. If they could hear me, they would think I was screaming at them. I have to go into the store.
You think they think that this guy's really upset?
I need to hook this microphone up in my car. That way.
To project it into the drive-through?
Yes.
Yeah. And you said my questions were stupid. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. All right, guys, we got to get out of here. It's Saturday. We kind of have a little bit of fun here on the show. It's not all just in your veins fantasy analysis, though I will say this has been some of the more fascinating discussion that we've had here on the show, because I do think that in those details that we are talking about with Z scores and especially one category guys, 3 category, whatever we're talking about, I think we really got into some deep stuff here, and even the decision making is low key interesting. So thank you guys both for wonderful conversation. Good luck at your tea time, Doc. I hope you shoot like a 51 or something against whoever you're stealing money from in your little underground, gambling ring at Johnny B's where you guys play Golden Tea.
I only play with one guy, and he's like 2.5 shots better than me. So I just try to hang in there and tie him or beat him occasionally.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see that with my own eyes. Mark, as usual, excellent analysis. You guys got to follow Mark at, wait, what is your Twitter handle? It's not at Mark. What is it?
No, it's at MacAttack145.
Thank you.
The other side, Blue Sky, that is Mark Camero.
Oh, you got Mark Camero. Somebody took Bruski from me, and I was so pissed because I thought I went over there like many moons ago when the whole Twitter was supposed to die last time. I thought I got Bruski, but I obviously didn't. So I'm Aaron Bruski at Blue Sky, and I'm sure, Doc, you're just thrilled to get in all the different social media networks that are out there. You're just ready for all of that,
dude. I want them all.
You're all of them. Yeah. I at Dr. A, I'm sure at Blue Sky.
You should follow me on Insta, bro.
Insta, bro.
Crush it over there. My Insta.
Your Insta game's off the hook. It's lit.
Chain.
You're lit.
Well, I mean, now we're talking like we're 50 years old. So off the chain is not
what you can't I know, right? What you can't see for the pod listeners is Mark Camero burying his head in his hands right now, embarrassed to be with us old men. That's going to do it for us on Fantasy NBA today, presented by Bet Online, a sports ethos presentation. Until next time, everybody, be well.